we're back. We're live with Life in the Law. And the fellow in the other box is Kenji Price, just stepping down from the position of United States Attorney for the District of Hawaii. If you've never met Kenji, today you're going to meet Kenji Price. It's great to have you on the show, Kenji.
Thank you so much, Jay. Privileged to be on the show. Really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you.
Great to talk to you. We met and talked before on ThinkTech, and I know your background. Let me just summarize it quickly. You're local. You were in the Army, I guess it was, in the Middle East there, in Central Asia. You spent a tour or two fighting there in the early 2000s. Wound up going to University of Pennsylvania Law School, where you got on law review and did very well. And from there, you went to the Eastern District of New York, where you were an assistant United States attorney in the full tilt Elliot Ness mode. I think somewhere in you, Kenji, is Elliot Ness.
Don't know about that, but I tried to do a little justice over there and here in Hawaii.
That is a great training ground, the Eastern District of New York. That's
great
Brooklyn.
People there.
Yeah.
Yes, Brooklyn, New York. Very
important place for the United States Attorney. Anyway, then you came back home and joined Carl Smith, where you and I met. You did some programs. I remember you did some federal programs I thought were very good on behalf of Carl Smith and the bar. And then, in 2018 or so, you were appointed United States Attorney for the District of Hawaii. And I guess that means the Trump administration. But you know what? My reaction at the time was, what a perfect choice. Because you are the picture, a picture of United States Attorney. And I think you had a really good run as United States Attorney the last couple of years. I want to talk about some of the cases you handled. Anyway, welcome to the show, Kenji. I think the first thing I would ask you about is, what is the process of resigning from the U.S. Attorney's Office? It's kind of interesting. I don't think you had much of a choice, eh?
Yes, I mean, it's pretty well publicized at a point in time, in the recent weeks. Many of us were asked to resign, but the process is a very simple one. You basically, obviously, you want to send notifications out, but in particular, to be more precise, you, in letter form, offer your resignation to the president. And then, of course, there's some different things that you do when you out process from the department, like any other organization. And of course, then you do the gut-wrenching process of saying goodbye to the wonderful public servants you work with, the law enforcement community, and a lot of other people in a lot of different spaces. So pretty simple process. Takes a little bit of time, but pretty simple, all things considered. And by the way, Jay, thank you for the introduction. Of course, I didn't do that, so thank you for that.
Okay, as long as you don't disagree with my rendition, that's all.
No, it was kind of you, but yes, you ran through a good portion of it. Thank you.
Well, then we have the piece, the op-ed piece or letter that you wrote for the paper yesterday. I thought was very interesting because there's a few things about it I'd like to talk about, but let me just say that it was emotional, if you will. That's what I saw in it. It was a statement of your state of mind on leaving, and your state of mind about how you enjoyed and valued the job and the people around you and the federal courts. I don't see too many letters like that. And then, of course, I want to add that just now I was reading the comments that people wrote in response to your farewell letter, if I can say farewell letter, although I don't really think it's farewell. There's more to come, but the comments were so nice. I mean, you were a law enforcement. You were the senior federal law enforcement officer in the state of Hawaii. That's pretty serious. And, you would think, that people would be afraid of you or something. I'm not afraid of you, by the way.
You don't have any reason to be, Jay.
So these dozens of people wrote in. It was like almost unanimous how much they liked you and they wished you well. That's really extraordinary. So anyway, why don't you tell us about, that op-ed piece, that letter that you wrote for the paper, why you wrote it and what you intended to convey in it.
Well, thank you, Jay. It was a great opportunity, and it was kind of the Star Advertiser staff to allow me to just say a few words to the community on my way out. I wanted to say something and thank a lot of people and try to do it, of course, in a concise way, and then plant a seed with a future generation. You kind of talked through a little bit of it, but a couple of things I'll highlight is one, in the very second paragraph of the piece, I had an opportunity to thank the people who really do the day-to-day of making the work of my office, making it successful. And of course, that's the career professionals who work in my office. U.S. attorneys, we have this tremendous privilege to be the chief federal law enforcement officers in a district. And that's a lot of responsibility. You end up being the face, essentially, of federal prosecution in Hawaii and federal law enforcement in Hawaii. So it's a privilege. You get attention. It's nice when people pay attention to the work of that institution. But the day-to-day, where the rubber meets the road, are the absolutely fantastic people who work underneath me, and they weather the storm day in and day out, perhaps metaphorically and literally, of handling the challenges that arise in protecting the community. I really wanted to give a special note to them and thank them for their contributions. I think I referred to them sort of as like a steady hand of administering justice or something along those lines. But the fact of the matter is, it's true. That's what they do. I wanted to really thank them because they are the people. I learned from them. I had the ability to try to steer the ship a little bit, but it was tremendous growth opportunity for me, and I can't thank them enough. And they are the ones who will continue to carry out enforcing the law with me gone. Whoever is in charge of the office, they come and go. People like me come and go, but they're that steady hand that keeps speeding, that keeps administering justice in perpetuity. Second, of course, I had to thank the law enforcement officers. Law enforcement officers in Hawaii do tremendous work. Police, federal agents, other state law enforcement. And really, we all owe them a debt of gratitude. It's been an interesting, I shouldn't say interesting, but we've had some ups and downs over the past few years. And as I said in the piece, some people have lost their lives putting themselves out there to protect our communities. And then I had a nice opportunity to thank some other people in the community who also contribute to the work of law enforcement. And finally, to try to plant the seed with our young people. One of the things I've really enjoyed about this job is having the ability and the platform to touch an audience of young people, high schoolers here and there, and really engage with them about a number of different issues. And really, I know we can pay lip service to how they hold the future in our hands, but it really is true. And particularly in this day and age, their understanding of the way government works, their understanding of their civic duty, or their understanding of what they can do for our communities is critical. And I hope that something I did, my office did, or that they saw, maybe compels one or two of them to, as I put it, to get into the arena, metaphorically, and see how they can add their talents, their skills. And so many young people in Hawaii are so talented. But I hope to encourage some of them to say, you know what, I'm going to roll the sleeves up. I'm going to give a break to what I'm doing here and see if I can do something for our community. So that was a really special part of the message. And I hope it was a message. I hope it is a message that is not lost upon many of the young people in Hawaii.
Hope so. Important. We talk about that all day. We talk about leadership in the next generation, taking us to a better place. And it's more important now than it ever was. But let me ask, I've always wanted to ask a United States attorney this question. I'm going to ask you, how was it? How was it to be the senior federal law enforcement officer in the state of Hawaii when you go to work and, handle these big prosecutions? I don't think people realize that the prosecutions in the U.S. Attorney's Office are way different than the ones in the Honolulu prosecutor's office. And they're bigger and they have bigger import and what do you want to call it, bigger effect on our lives, if you will. How was it to do that job?
I'm very thankful. Before I go to even talking about being a U.S. attorney, I do want to say something about what happens on the state and local side of the house. One of the things that's so critical is looking at law enforcement as a larger community. And a lot of the work done by state and local prosecutors, particularly on the local side, is so critical. They handle so many cases, such volume, and do tremendous work, which I think allows for sort of the unique role that the feds, for lack of better terms, hold, the federal law enforcement community. But to answer your question in a more pointed way, it was phenomenal. It was a tremendous growth experience. Of course, it's a significant responsibility, but when you have a team of people who are so committed to what you're doing and who work so hard and literally give their lives into the work, it really is an enjoyable experience. And what I think the federal law enforcement community, in particular my office or my former office, played a pretty unique role in the grand scheme of things in our ability to leverage resources, develop partnerships with people on the state and local side of the house, and really, in a very fine-tuned way, attack certain problems. And I think we were able to do that. Of course, there's much more to be done, but it was a fantastic experience to really navigate, push the ship forward, and try to advance the ship forward and making sure that we're protecting people in our community.
Yeah, two things that I became aware of about the, well, as a practicing lawyer, going down to the federal courts once in a while, I found that the people in it who populate the federal courts, including the judges and all the staff, are really remarkable, just as you say. It's a very classy, elegant organization. They're kind and moral to each other, and it's a great place to be professionally. Um, the other thing I found, we handled I shouldn't say handled, we had a talk show years ago about the stealth bomber prosecution. I thought it was very interesting. It was done out of the District of Hawaii. This was a espionage case, a major consequence, and there was a conviction. And we talked to the U.S. attorney who handled it, and I learned two things about it. I'm sure you can help me understand. Number one is he was not alone. He had resources available to him from the Department of Justice in Washington. So although he was working in this office, he had all these resources that were being made available, and it really helped him prosecute the case. Um, and the other thing is that the Department of Justice and the U.S. attorneys they're all connected. So you do have resources around the country, and it's not like the local prosecutorial process in that sense. Am I right? Can you talk about that?
You're 100% right. And without talking about any specific case, I'll just say more broadly the way the system operates. And you're right. I mean, without the revenue generating component of things, what the Department of Justice is like is sort of this behemoth of a law firm, or even broader than a law firm, because it handles much more than just the day in and day out litigation in court. As you may know, there's law enforcement entities that fall under the Department of Justice. So it's a very big umbrella under which you have all kind of resources and activities. But yes, you're right. There's a lot of information sharing that occurs across geographic boundaries, resources that we can draw on, critically personnel to help work on all kind of different things. And for some of the prosecutions that we do, you may see a prosecutor from, as we call it, Main Justice, or in Washington, D.C. generally, paired up with a prosecutor here in Hawaii. So it is a big team. Like any team, the Department of Justice has things that it's great at, things that it could always improve on, but it certainly is a team, and it brings to bear sort of the full force of, I would say, federal resources in making sure that it protects communities. So you're 100% right about your overarching view of the way the system works.
Over the Trump administration, we've had a lot of tumult. That's probably an understatement about the intelligence agencies, the investigative like FBI agencies that the U.S. Attorney works for, and we've had a lot of tumult about the Attorney General William Barr in Washington, and we've had tons of, what do you want to call it, issues over the politicization of the Department of Justice. And I wonder if that ever touched you, whether you ever had concern over it, whether there was ever an issue in your mind on how to do your job because of anything like that.
Well, again, I'll say two things. One is that, and this is again paying homage to those who worked in my office with me. A lot of what you hear about the tumult out there, as you described it, is you need to be situationally aware. You need to know what's going on at the local level as well as the national level. But I will say that the day-to-day that's done in Hawaii is the product of many apolitical decisions that occur by seasoned career prosecutors just trying to do the right thing, and law enforcement, to be precise, at the state and local level. So while you have to understand the broader picture, And you need to, as a U.S. attorney, obviously take your marching orders from the top. You have tremendous leeway in doing justice and enforcing the law in Hawaii. So, of course, I was aware of a lot of what was going on many different fronts. But I think we did a pretty good job of focusing on facts and law and trying to make good decisions on the ground, so to say. And that's really what the day-to-day work of the department is like. And that's really what it was like in Hawaii. I have, for example, when I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, just underneath me, I had two very senior department officials, or excuse me, very seasoned department officials. I mean, between the two of them, it was like 60 some odd years of experience as federal prosecutors. So I had all that institutional knowledge and the stability of lessons learned over time contributing to the decisions that I made. So really, I think the point is that when you're at the ground level and you're trying to do justice, you're trying to identify what are the issues in Hawaii where we can be impactful, where we can ensure accountability, there is actually a pretty good amount of stability. And that stability, in my view, is a large part of what leads to the outcomes that we get. And what I mean by outcomes is bringing appropriate charges, obtaining appropriate convictions, when it's in the interest of justice to do so. And I think that institutional strength is what makes the department what it is. And I was fortunate to have the ability to learn from these folks and also to steer the ship in my opinion, very focused on facts, very focused on law, and very focused on protecting the community.
Yeah, it's funny that even as we speak right now, this moment, Merrick Garland is in his confirmation hearing. I really wonder what will happen.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the future of the department. With its potentially soon to be leader. I don't know where they are precisely in the proceedings, but at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. But like I say, it's a fantastic institution. There are tremendous people there. And as I said in the op-ed, as political appointees, we come and go. But the institution stands and the institution does great work.
Well, that's the important thing in the sense that in order to have a democracy, you've got to have public confidence in the administration of justice.
Yep.
And on the federal level, it starts with the individual districts and the U.S. attorneys in those districts. So let me ask you this question and see how you feel about it. We've had a lot of events and tumult, if you will, over the past 4 years where the public might have lost confidence in the government. Some people have, they'll tell you that. But on the other hand, it also seems to me that, well, let me ask you, should the public have confidence, unbridled, unconditioned, unrestrained confidence in the work of the Department of Justice now, as we speak, in connection with the U.S. attorneys in the various districts and in Washington? Should I have confidence? What confidence should I have? What level of confidence should I have?
I think the public should be extremely confident in the Department of Justice. I, for one, everybody may have personal opinions about individuals or personalities, but like I said, I think about the institution, or I'm focused on the institution. And what my experience has been is there are exemplary individuals who lead in the Department of Justice, regardless of administration, in Hawaii and of course elsewhere. I mean, and I say in Hawaii because the career folks are there, as political appointees come and go. But also across the spectrum, the department just gets staffed by high quality people. I think in Hawaii in particular, people should be very confident and have a lot of confidence in the work that the office is doing. It's staffed, like I said, by career folks, but not just any career folks. I mean, folks who are just so accomplished and who obviously I know personally, having worked with them for the past few years. And they are absolutely high quality people that people should be proud to have representing them in federal court on a day-to-day basis. Today, my replacement, or I shouldn't say replacement, but an acting U.S. attorney should have been sworn in, or probably will be sworn in any moment now. She's a career vet named Judy Phillips, who was number 2 in my office. I anticipate that she's the acting U.S. attorney over there, career public servant, and just with the quality of people, I think that people should be very confident about what the people who are getting paid to obviously represent their interests in federal court, or represent the interests of the United States in federal court. People should be confident in what they're doing.
Judy Phillips will be sworn in, is being sworn in as acting, or is she being sworn in as the United States Attorney? What is the
I
news?
believe it'll be the acting United States Attorney. I believe she'll be sworn in as the acting United States Attorney. And Judy's somebody I've obviously worked with very closely for the past 3 years. And I also knew Judy in Brooklyn. She was at the U.S. Attorney's office there. So the office is in great hands. But even beyond Judy, I don't want to focus too much on one individual. I've talked about institutions up to this point, or the institution. And there are just phenomenal people across the spectrum there. Like any office, it has its strengths and weaknesses. So does every institution. But there are just a bunch of tremendous people doing great work. And people see them in court, or certainly hear about the work that they're doing in the newspapers.
So we haven't heard who your successor will be. That appointment hasn't been announced, I guess. Any thoughts about the profile of who it might be?
I hope it's somebody who will just continue the great work of the office, and somebody who can just take on the challenges with open eyes, eager to learn, and eager to do justice in Hawaii. So I won't speculate as to who it will be, but I will just say in general that I hope it's somebody who can just operate with that team, the fine team over there, and just carry on the legacy of the Department of Justice day in and day out.
It could be from anywhere, but I take it that the likelihood is that your successor will be from Hawaii.
We'll see. What I hope for is just quality, Jay. I just hope that whoever it is somebody who can get in there and continue to work in the office. If they're able to take it to another level and just doing better to protect the community. It should be every step. It should sort of be the steady drumbeat moving forward of improvement in an office. So hopefully it'll be somebody who does that.
Well, you've had
I guess I could say that as a civilian. I can say hopefully they do a good job of protecting me.
I wonder how you feel about this. When I was in the service, I was trial and defense counsel in a variety of court-martial cases. And of course, if you were the trial counsel doing the prosecution, you stood up and identified yourself. You said, and I quote, my name is Jay Fidell, and I represent the United States of America. And there wasn't a time, Kenji, when it didn't touch my heart to be able to say that. And you have been saying that a lot, and your people have been saying that a lot. How do you feel about that when you stand up and say, I represent the United States of America?
I mean, it's a heck of a thing to be able to say. It's such a privilege to be able to say, to be people's sort of representative, or to be able to just be that symbol in court in what you do, or even outside of court in what you do, in representing the executive branch of government. It's a tremendous feeling. It's a rewarding experience. And I just think it's something that everybody's going to find their way to serve the public. If you get to do it as a lawyer, as an assistant United States attorney or United States attorney, that's not a bad way to make a living. Of course, one of the things that everybody knows about being a U.S. attorney, chances are you're not going to say that for the rest of your life. And I had actually left being an assistant United States attorney, but my service background dates even before that, as you know. But for the people who have that privilege, it's something to cherish. And if I could share a word with them, it would be to embrace it, enjoy it, do your best to make sure that you live up to all that it entails.
So you've had some high-profile cases. I think the Michael Misky case was on your watch. Can you talk about it, or to the extent that you can?
I want to be respectful and appropriate about how I approach things that were done in the office. All I'll say is that a lot has already been divulged in the public about the case. It is ongoing, of course, when I left the office. So I want to also be respectful to the work that the prosecutors are doing, and let the office speak about any matters pertaining to that case. I think it's better for the office to, at this point, speak about the work of the office. And now I'm Kenji Price, the civilian, and I'll leave it to the authorities handling that.
That's a great answer to my question, Kenji, but I am not sorry I asked you.
I understand, Jay. And, of course, now it's quite a quick transition. Yesterday was my last day on the job, so of course I got to check myself. So I'm not saying my office or, we or this or that. That is history now. It will either it is Judy's office or will be shortly. But I think I should leave it to them to speak about the work of the United States government in Hawaii.
Of course. So I want to talk to you about, careers. So far, in my view, you've had a fabulous, fantastic career. I mean, it's worth it writing a book about, actually. I hope you consider that at some point. But, and you don't have to talk
At
about
least I'll have
individual
one reader.
cases.
I just said, at least I'll have one reader, Jay. That's a start, right? Exactly.
Your wife.
And my wife, maybe
That's
so too.
But, where are you? Where are you as you see it today? I mean, I know this is a hard question, and I don't expect you to tell me, all your thoughts about it. But what do you see looking down the road career-wise for a guy who's been through, the military as an officer in Central Asia, and then did so well in school and did so well at the Eastern District and Carl Smith and this. I mean, these are incredible steps, and they lead only to good places. But how do you see, your position now on the continuum?
Well, I know this may not be the level of precision that that one can provide, but I'll just give you the big picture, and I truly do mean this. I love to be able to impact a community and impact a space that I'm operating, and I think that there are many different ways to do that. I hope that as time passes, I will be able to find a way to do that on the private side or the public side. I know that that doesn't tell you, hey, specific position, specific opportunity or anything like that. But I really do. I enjoy public service. I enjoy being able to be impactful on that front. But on the other hand, I think that private sector actors have tremendous ability to be impactful. And you're seeing that all over the country. I mean, I think you're seeing, obviously, in the wake of what happened last year, the George Floyd situation, you hear about the Breonna Taylor situation, and then how the private sector has been so mobilized to achieve whether it's racial justice or other issues. So I just hope to be among the people who in some significant way will be able to impact a community, hopefully directly, hopefully not too indirectly, but we'll see where life takes me. The other thing is I really do enjoy just the challenge of, taking on an issue. I don't want to say a problem, but taking on something where my leadership background can be of assistance, whether it's in inspiring people or in just helping an organization take the next step. So I'm up for challenges, hope to impact the community, private or public sector, but beyond that, that's where I'll leave things for today.
Well, I hope we can talk again, and I can follow you, in the next steps, whatever they may be. I'll be one of your fans.
Well, thank you.
I'll be calling you.
I'll take whatever I can get, Jay. Anybody?
But let me ask you
other
this,
than my
though.
wife, I'll take whatever I can get.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But what about the country? I mean, you have to measure the country by the federal establishment these days. And I mean, how do you feel about the United States these days after your tour? Well, in a variety of federal jobs, really. Most of your career has been in federal jobs. So how do you feel about the United States and its direction and possibility, its prospect in the world, its search for justice? How do you feel about it?
Yeah. Well, I think just I want to be careful not to speak too much about roles or people or things that I haven't done and responsibilities I have not had to bear. So I won't speak with any level of specificity about any specific position or leader, because I think, one should always be cautious about commenting on what you really don't fully appreciate or understand or have not done yourself in a way that you're really in the position to speak intelligently about. But what I will say more broadly is that I hope that a lot of the things people have experienced over the last few years, maybe even beforehand, in terms of where the country is, I think a lot of people have seen at times a country that has had its set of disagreements internally that have played out on the world stage. And what I hope that as time progresses, we will continue or start to develop just sort of this groundswell of leaders who look at each other's humanity around them, look at the humanity of folks and how we can create connections and how we can empower our communities and provide that leadership focused on people. I know that may sound a little vague, but I gave a speech recently where I was at Indo-PACOM, and I was speaking to an audience about, it was in connection with Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and we were talking about sort of leadership and the racial dynamic in the workplace. And sort of the theme that I was drawing on was the theme of focusing on each other's humanity, which I think is an emphasis on the ties that bind us together as people. And it's my hope that we sort of can take steps in the direction of focusing on each other's humanity as a way to create more bonds and as a way to solve problems that we all are going to have. The problems could be almost anything. But I think as we see the humanity in each other and emphasize that a little, I think that we may be able to make a little progress in making the world a better place. So at the risk of sounding like just some idealist, I hope that there's a groundswell of people focused on that as we move forward.
Clearly, Kenji, you are an idealist. You know,
Fair enough. Although I have lived, as I said in the piece, in the arena, using Theodore Roosevelt's language, the metaphorical arena, and I think that there are ways that you can focus on humanity as opposed to pure ideology day to day in tackling problems. I think that is the more we can put on the shoes of somebody else, or the more that we can step into their situation and think to ourselves, what would life be like if that was my walk to work through that neighborhood? Or what would life be like if I kept feeling that I was hitting this glass ceiling year in and year out? Perhaps we could take a step forward on some issues, or at least be compelled to work together to break a few barriers and make the world a better place.
Thank you, Kenji. It's an honor to know you, and certainly an honor to have this discussion with you. I hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a privilege, and I really appreciate the opportunity. It was great to see you again, and thank you so much for having me.
Aloha.
All right, aloha, Jay.